Amen. Josh, that prayer was appropriate. We're going to be talking about loving one another tonight. I don't know if you, hopefully you knew that, because we're all good Bible students who prepare our lessons for the next day. I definitely wasn't at Ethan's house taking pictures of the lesson last night because I don't have my book. It's sitting over there, but that's my own fault. But yeah, we're going to be in 1 Thessalonians 4, 9 through 18. I was talking to Aaron about this, and he was telling me how excited he was to teach this lesson, and he's like, well, and then it got canceled on me. And so we were talking, and he hadn't had anybody take class, so he's like, it's about loving one another. And I'm like, that's a great topic. I'd absolutely love to teach that topic. So I'm going to do the same kind of outline / format I did last time I taught this class a couple weeks ago. To basically where we'll read the section together in 1 Thessalonians 4, and then I'll kind of recap what his thoughts there on the first page, and then kind of recap just briefly his outline. And then anybody can stop me throughout then if they have any comments or questions throughout that. And then we can go on the discussion questions. We'll spend most of our time tonight looking at those discussion questions. So we'll start with turning over to 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. And if I could have a volunteer to read verses 9 through 18. 1 Thessalonians 4, 9 through 18. Chip, go ahead.
Concerning brotherly love, we have no need that I should write to you, for you yourselves are taught by God to love one another. And indeed you do so toward all the brethren who are in all Macedonia. But we urge you, brethren, that you increase more and more, that you also aspire to lead a quiet life, to mind your own business, and to work with your own hands, as we commanded you, that you may walk properly toward those who are outside, and that you may lack nothing. But I do not want you to be ignorant, brethren, concerning those who have fallen asleep, lest you sorrow as others who have no hope. For if we believe that Jesus died and rose again, even so God will bring with him those who sleep in Jesus. 60 through 16.
18, please.
For this we say to you by the word of the Lord, that we who are alive and remain until the coming of the Lord will by no means precede those who are asleep. For the Lord himself will descend from heaven with a shout, and the voice of an archangel, and with the trumpet of God, and the dead in Jesus will rise first. Then we who are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and thus we shall always be with the Lord. Therefore, comfort one another with these words.
Alrighty, thank you, Chip. So if you take a look at that first page there on lesson 7, he gives this paragraph, and right before it he says, for you yourselves are taught by God to love one another. Basically the theme of what we just read there together. And then he goes on to say, love, if ever a word is overused and underapplied, it is love. I thought that was an interesting comment. If ever a word is overused and underapplied, it is love. What do you think he means by that? And do you agree with that statement? Greg?
We don't have enough words in the English language for love.
Okay.
So we overuse the one that we all are comfortable with, and there's lots and lots and lots of words for love in other languages. And so there's deficiency in our communication. There was a jar of peanut butter on my mother's counter about 50-some years ago. And it said, kids love it on the side. And I said, that ought to change that, kids like it. And my parents were so impressed that I got the topic of the lesson that in the sermon. And that, it's overapplied because we are using it in context that it doesn't apply. And then we fail to use it in the context where it should apply.
So in what kind of context do you think love is misused or used in the wrong tense?
For marketing peanut butter, for one thing.
Okay.
All kinds of things are described as it's just kind of a overused word that becomes sort of a throwaway word.
Yeah.
And it should be a word that implies gratitude, service, and surrender.
Yeah.
It doesn't most of the time.
Yeah, I think that's true. And basically what we're trying to get to here is the word love, the way it's used and thrown out in our day-to-day, is not kind of the focus that we're leaning on tonight, on what it means to truly love one another and truly have the love that God, that comes from God. And I think that's a good description there that you gave, Greg. So anything else, any other thoughts on that phrase, if ever a word is overused and underapplied, it is love? Go ahead, Emily.
I think there's also, like, yes, it's overused because it's just become like oh, I love it, and it's like you don't really love it. But even in the sense where people are like, oh, well, yeah, I love this person, it's overused and underapplied because it's, yeah, I love them, but I'm not going to show the love that I have for them because I don't really want to work for it. It's just this feeling that I have. And so we use it as a feeling and a description more than an act of working love.
Yeah, it's like with anything else where, words are easy to say, but actions are hard to apply. To where it's easy to say, like Emily said, yeah, I mean, I love this person. And I find that kind of ironic because I look back at some conversations we had, and sometimes it's hard to tell people that we love them. Sometimes. I've been there. I know it can feel awkward. It can feel weird. And in this context that we're using the term love, I look back and I'm like, why is it sometimes hard to tell people that we do love them? And it goes back to what that meaning of love is. So I just thought that was an interesting little point as well. I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but maybe it's a guy thing too. I don't know. But it's just, like I said, sometimes I think it's ironic that, I'll say I love this person, but how often do I show it to them? Or how often do I just even tell them, that they're loved by me and they're appreciated by me and those little things. Okay, so he continues on saying after that, in this section, Paul challenges us to love one another, looking at verse 9, but also to behave properly towards outsiders, looking at verse 12. In other words, we are to love and maintain relationships with both Christians and non-Christians. Paul said similar words in Galatians chapter 6 and verse 10 when he says, "Let us do good to all people and especially to those who are the household of faith." So tonight we're going to peek at a little bit the two sides of being able to love, because as Paul said here in Galatians, saying, let us do good to all people, and especially to those who are the household of faith. And I know sometimes we can cling on, right? You look at that passage in Galatians, we can cling on that Paul's like, hey man, you really need to focus on those of like-minded faith, or you really need to focus on and really put a lot more of your effort into those who have faith like you do. But you have to remember the first part of that verse when he says, let us do good to all people. And there's importance, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. There's importance on how we treat everyone as we're all people here on this earth. And then he gives two warnings here. The extreme number one being we can become so exclusive that our whole world revolves around other Christians. While wanting to insulate ourselves from worldly temptations, we isolate ourselves from people who need Christ. How can we reach the lost if we never have any relationship with them? And as I was preparing for this, I kind of looked over kind of the passion in this room that we've expressed recently on some different outreach opportunities and how we can be more involved in our community. And it made me think like it's a good thing for us to think about on who are we spending our time with. And if we're choosing to spend every single moment we have neglecting those outside the faith, then how are people supposed to be reached? How is the gospel supposed to be reached? And that's exactly the point there. And it does highlight the extreme number two when it says we choose to spend more time with the people of the world than we do with people of Christ. As a result, we become secret agent saints whose behavior is little different from non-believing world. And it's a true statement. I think if we spend our time and our focus is not trying to impact and encourage those who are outside the faith when we're spending time with people like that, I think it is a true statement that, yeah, our behavior can be affected by that as well. And the way we act can be affected by that as well. But I do really like the extreme number one focus on that there is importance on spending time and outreaching and reaching people who haven't really had the chance sometimes to know Jesus. So those are the two extremes he talks about, and he goes on to say, the Lord never intended to remove us from the world. Jesus prayed for insulation from Satan, not isolation from society. He says we see that in John 17. And we can only be salt and light to a lost world when we involve ourselves in it without becoming like it. It's a fine line, but one that is essential to find. Do any of you guys have any more thoughts on kind of that introduction that was given there? Basically, the idea of each extreme, the importance of spending time with people outside the faith, and also spending our time with people within the faith. Any other thoughts or comments there? That's okay. We can move on. Like I said, I'm going to recap this outline he gives, and it's just a lot of words. And if our goal is to get through one lesson for each class, it's hard to do all that. So basically, he's recapping what we read, starting in verse 9 and 10, talking about this idea of how to live before believers, and goes through things talking about... He says there in part A of number 1, there are many passages where God instructs us about brotherly love. When we display this kind of love towards one another, it attracts the attention of the unsaved. Basically saying we can have an impact just by our actions and the way that we can be an example to people, that we can reach people with the way we live around them. And then he goes and talks about in part B, how did the Thessalonians measure up to God's expectations? Saying there at the end of verse 10, for indeed you do practice it toward all the brethren in Macedonia. He commended them for their consistency. The apostle challenged them to excel still more as followers express our genuine concern and care for one another. After all, it is one of the purposes of our assemblies, right? But it also means that we enjoy spending time together on other occasions too. And I think that's a good point to remember as well. So, and I like the way that Paul addressed the people here in Thessalonians, saying, hey, you guys are doing good at this, but just keep going. Keep doing it and keep doing good at it. Go ahead, Andrew.
I think it's significant that Paul says that they are practicing love, not feeling love. And, that's one of the things that maybe we could have said about how love gets overused is we treat every feeling and we'll call it love, when biblical love tends to be shown as a active pursuit, an active doing something. So I also agree. I like in our recent discussion we talked about outreach and inreach, and both of those need, I think, being active in showing that love in order for them to be effective.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll focus on the inreach, and when it comes to the world, we'll say, well, I feel almost a pitiful love. I pity the outsider, or we'll pity the world, we'll feel sorry for the world, or maybe we'll just feel bad for the world, but we don't do anything or be active for the world.
So you mentioned like Paul said, you're not feeling it. What is the significance of taking the time to feel that love, and what does that look like to you? And if you don't have an answer, that's okay. You can answer, anybody else can answer. I just thought it was a good point. I like the way you phrased that.
I mean, what I think is the involuntary feeling of love sometimes is involuntary. You don't always choose when you feel the feelings of love.
Yeah.
So to me, being active in love, being, like he said in verse 10, practicing it toward others is a much more intentional thing.
Yeah, I agree on that. Greg, did you have something?
I was going to build on what Andrew said about it. It is not a feeling, it is an action. It's putting into practice, arranging yourself below others for the purpose of their good. And so that's going to take conscientious effort. And I don't have to like people that I love. And people think that's a strange thing to say.
But it's true.
It's absolutely the truth.
Yeah.
Is often one will grow to like the people they love
Yeah.
because of the service they provide. But it's not a necessary prerequisite
Right.
for me to like the people that I love. And they don't have to like me either.
Right. Doesn't necessarily have to get along either, but love can be put into place and used properly, even if it's not, those separate feelings are not as mutual. I agree with that too. Okay, and then let's move on to the next, in part 2, he focuses on verse 11 and 12, this idea of how to live before unbelievers rather than believers. It has 3 separate things. Basically, Paul's threefold challenge for everybody for everyday evangelism. is part A, lead a quiet life. What does it mean to lead? Lead a quiet life.
I have no idea.
Yeah, Greg doesn't know. Ethan?
It's just idea of not stirring the pot or causing trouble.
Yeah, the way I had to look at this and understand it was, okay, I was kind of on Greg's terms. I don't really understand what a quiet life means. So what do I think a loud life means? And then that's kind of where I went. There's people who kind of go out there and look for trouble. Go out there and raise their voice and look for people to stir them up, get them angry, cause issues, cause trouble. And so I was like, okay, so if that's what a loud life is, a quiet life is one who kind of stays to themselves, but impacts people more in a quieter, simpler way like that. Greg?
I think there's also a way that people do good for other people that could be interpreted as love, as a loving gesture, but they've done it for the purpose of being loud about it. They've done it to draw attention to themselves and what a great person they are. I don't think that's living a quiet, peaceful life.
No.
You know, if you're and I gave a whole sermon on this one time not too long ago. If you're recognized for your good service, that doesn't negate the good that you've done.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
It should be, in fact, recognized that in the scriptures, people told of others' good works and they brought examples of their good works. And we have to know the widows to be those who are subject to having been one to practice good works. I mean, how are we going to judge people if you have to hide something nice you've done for someone else in order for it to count? So it just doesn't make any sense. But the people that are seeking their reward by being loud about the good works they do probably have already received their reward from men. And they
Yeah.
don't necessarily be recognized by God.
Yeah, I didn't think about that in this context, but I think it fits really well. And that's true. I mean, you have to think about it. It's all about why you're doing it. If I'm doing something for you to try to help you out, but the real motive behind it was, hey, I just want glory for this, right? I don't really care what it's doing for you, almost is what it's doing for me and what's recognizing for me. And you're right. That's not true love. That's not the action behind what true love is. And it's definitely not leading a quiet life. If that's the way that you choose to love, that's not a quiet way to go about it. But I think that defines it really well. So he talks about that, and then he talks about minding your own business. I think this is an interesting thing as well because I've struggled with it in the past, feeling like something's my business and it's truly not. What is the importance of knowing your boundaries and being able to mind your own business, stay in your own lane? What does that look like to you guys? I see a lot of smiles, and I understand why.
What's your question?
Basically, what does it look like to mind your own business in this context of loving each other and kind of staying in your lane, not getting in business that's not yours? We were listening to a radio show on the way in here tonight, and they were talking about how there was a family situation going on, and it's grown adults, but it was like, hey, I think what goes on with my immediate family is my business as well, even if it's going on with them. It's just a side point that made me chuckle, but it does go into knowing your boundaries and what business is your business, and how do you go about that business. Does that make sense? Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's kind of a weird concept, and it's not the most normal concept, but go ahead, Ethan.
I think it's, with a lot of things, especially in this lesson, it's hard because you have to find a balance, right? Because he says we're not ignoring things, but you also don't need to insert yourself in everything. And maybe that's a control thing.
Yeah.
I feel like I have to be involved in everything. But yeah, just not inserting ourselves in, I need to worry about me and doing what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
But at the same time, we do need to be concerned with each other.
Yes.
About other people. But there is a line.
Yeah, being involved when it's necessary for us to be involved. Andrew?
I think we might struggle because I think culturally we've taken mind your own business. Just saying mind your own business means leave me alone.
Right. That's true.
Just disconnect from me altogether. Mind
Yeah.
your own business and leave me alone. I was looking at the words, and there's a contrast of the definitions between leading a quiet life and attending to business.
Okay.
Those two words both contain the idea of busyness. So the lead a quiet life, one of the ways of translating that is don't be busy about being meddlesome. And then the mind your own business is attending to or literally be busy about your business. So he's kind of saying, rather than meddling in other people's lives, trying to, I think Ethan's right, control or pull the strings or manipulate people, don't meddle in other people's lives, attend to what is your business. But that doesn't mean ignore a person or just cut
Right.
a person off
Yeah.
and say, well, I don't want to invade their privacy. I don't
Yeah.
want to ask them how they're doing. I'll just not care. That's not the opposite of mind your own business in this case.
Yeah, it's one of those situations that does take both sides, right? If you want somebody to be involved with something you're going through, you got to be open about that. And then on the other end, you do have to, it's okay for us to ask people we're close to, hey, what's going on? Do you need any help? And then it's just up to each person to play their part right, I guess. Go ahead.
I think in his little snippet, he kind of uses the word overly concerned about others' business.
Yeah.
And it's this balance of, first off, what's your intent behind it? Because if I'm over here snooping just because I want to know the latest gossip and I want to know what's happening and I want to just be in the know, that's different than me snooping in someone's business because I'm concerned about you and, hey, you're not opening up to anyone, you're acting different, like what's going on? And so I think intent has a lot to do with it and the whole aspect of overly concerned. We should always be concerned for each other, but not overly concerned in each other's business where we only care about you and fixing you and not focusing on ourselves.
Right. And that's a true mindset that some people can't, it's hard to get, out of that. I know some people who are I just want to come in there and fix it. I just want to help, I need to be this person. And it's a real thing. Go ahead, Ethan.
Yeah, it's hard because we are each other's business.
Yeah.
You are my business.
Yeah.
But we take that way too far, like we're talking about. And to say that we have that kind of, accountability to each other, it's not always comfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example of, but there's probably, times where I don't want people to insert themselves, but we do have that responsibility toward each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think intent is a huge thing with that.
I think so too. I think it's spot on to where we are in a sense each other's business. Like we're in this family together. We're here for the same reason. We have this bond built with each other. Like, yeah, there's ways that we can be involved in people's lives. So, okay, if there's nothing else on that, then the third one, I didn't mean to spend much time, but it's good discussion, so I don't mind it. He says, work with your own hands. There are many leading lazy lives while repeating a benefit from the work of others. Paul's concerned so that you may behave properly towards outsiders. If Christians want to win a hearing, sorry, I can't read tonight. I don't know why. If Christians want to win a hearing with the world, that doesn't make any sense. If Christians want to win a hearing with the world, now it does. We must exhibit industry and hard work. How can a lazy person have a positive effect on anyone? They can't. By the way, outside of our family, our coworkers know us best. And what did they know? And basically what I got from this section was work with your own hands, meaning don't be lazy, right? Don't take a back seat to everything. Don't always think, oh, someone else to do it. I don't want to do it. Put some effort into this kind of work. So anything else on that? Okay, and then this third part is talking about the second coming, and it talks about that in verses 13 through 18 there on the second half of that passage. And he says it's essential to note that the wicked dead are not under discussion. Some use this passage to teach two resurrections, one for the righteous and another for the wicked. And John 5:28-29 teaches there will be one resurrection for both the righteous and the wicked. This passage concerns only two groups of people, Christians who are still alive and Christians who have died. And goes on to talk about that a little bit more. But I think I'm ready to get into discussion of kind of the questions, if everybody's ready for that. If you want to take a look there right before the questions, it talks about what we know and what the passages have shown us about the second coming, saying that Jesus will bring the souls of the saved with him. Jesus will raise their bodies from the grave. Jesus will change both the dead and the living bodies into a new dwelling for the soul, one that is fitting for a heavenly eternal realm. And Jesus guarantees that we will always be with the Lord. And that's what this second part of the passage is telling us about the second coming. So if there's nothing on that, we can go ahead and get into these questions and see how far. We got about 20 minutes or so. We can kind of dive into these questions. So number 1 says, discuss the ways that Christians can foster even stronger relationships with one another. And the follow-up to that, why is it important for Christians to be together socially, given that we see each other at assemblies anyways? I think this is a phenomenal discussion question that we can have. So anybody want to start us out on that? Go ahead, Brace.
I mean, there's no shortcut. It's the only way to build deeper relationships is to spend time together.
Yeah.
And to be willing to share with one another, to be willing to share our lives, the good, the bad, the ugly sometimes,
Yeah.
is what draws us closer together, and seals that bond of love that God wants to be between us. So.
Yeah, there has to be an effort, If there's no effort, if there's no plan made to get to know one another, then you're simply not going to be able to get to know one another. How am I supposed to know what's going on in your life? How are you supposed to know what's going on in my life if we don't make the effort to sit down, get to know one another, and spend the time outside in a different setting? And not that we can't get to know each other here, if you stay after or whatever and have conversations, but I think the social aspect of it is very crucial. And I think that look at what we're doing and the chance that us younger generation has had towards the younger people get together every month, and then us men have had a men's study. I know the ladies have started to get together. Some of the ladies are now doing a class, I think, outside on Saturdays, which is awesome. So those kind of things, I think, are making efforts and working towards getting to know one another. And once again, if there's no effort, if there's no work, we're not going to be able to truly understand and create strong relationships with one another. And obviously, there's a huge emphasis on what it means to have a true, strong relationship with those who are of the same faith as you. Anything else on that? Addie, go ahead.
I didn't bring the right book, so I'm just trying to look for memory. But
That's okay.
I've written down making the effort to try to go out of your way to get to know other brethren, being interested in them, praying together, and I have written down being uncomfortable, because if I look back 4 years ago, I would much rather have preferred to be an introvert,
Yeah.
not put in the effort to have those connections.
Yeah.
And I really long for connections with especially my sisters in Christ.
Yeah.
So I had to put in the work.
Yeah.
And it took a lot. I mean, it took time. It wasn't overnight.
But you could probably see how it's grown and how it, because of the effort you've put in, where that's led you to today. So that's great. And like you said, it can't be fake. You have to have an interest. And I think there's importance on actually having an interest to get to know one another and having a desire to know who we are as a group and that kind of stuff. So I think that's a good thought there. Go ahead, Greg. Sorry.
When I was struggling more so than today with some of my emotions and feelings, I began to tell people I'm oversharing. I felt like I was burdening people. Now, no one ever told me I was a burden, but it's something that I was conscious of, and I was bothered by it. And I learned to find out that the people who truly are friends to one another don't feel that way when one of their friends needs help.
Yeah.
So I think in the broader experience, it helped me to appreciate openness and candor more so than I had ever appreciated before. Even though I think it exposed a part of me that I was having trouble controlling.
Yeah.
It still was part of who I am and who I was at that time. And people were able to encourage me to, live beyond those moments and those feelings, and things get
You know, I'm going to say this, and I think I do truly believe it. In context and settings like that, I don't believe in oversharing. I don't believe that's a real thing. I feel like in those moments, especially for the ones who truly care about us, like you said, there's nothing we can say that's going to burn. And if they truly love us and want to help us, let it all out. Put it all on the table and let these relationships drive the way they're supposed to drive, if that makes sense.
I did mention a week or two ago that when someone said the word love in my house, my mother said we're not allowed to use that word in my house. So that's kind of an indication of how much I've stressed since that point in time of my upbringing. And it was really through having to be more of an open person.
Yeah.
Due to the role that I play, that helped me see the difference in trying to keep everything to myself and just being transparent and letting the emotions fall when they fall. And sometimes I don't control them very well, and that's okay. Sometimes my friends don't control their emotions, and sometimes we say things we'd like to take back. And all of that is okay when it's true friendships.
Yeah, it is. And I understand that. I mean, I have struggled. One of my biggest struggles in this topic is, for some reason, I've felt the same way, and I struggle sharing things and what I truly feel. And it's hard for me to put all that on the table. And I've grown up with it. I've seen it in people I've grown up with, and it just kind of passed down to me. But when I do share the things that need to be shared, I can tell the difference. I can tell that needed to be put out there. And talked about. So, go ahead, Andrew.
Kind of like something Grace said, I'm pretty confident in my own life that the people who know the worst about me, it's like a one-to-one relationship of those are the people that I'm closest to.
Yeah.
The closer I am to a person, the better they know my faults and the better they see my ugly side. So, I'm not saying in order to foster a closer relationship, we need to go around and act ugly toward one another so that knowledge increases, but I had in my notes that mutually to share your faults with another, to allow someone to know your faults, and to receive and hear the faults of another person are ways to foster those closer relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure it'd be just a grand old time to just go and be ugly and throw it all out there. But I agree. I think you're right.
I got told by someone once. They said, "Andrew, you seem like you're someone who just never gets mad at anything. You seem like you never get angry." And I didn't say it to this person, but I thought, that's kind of a bad reflection on my relationship with this person, isn't it? That
Yeah.
they think that I never get angry.
But I mean, I think it's a good point to look at, and we do need to truly know. Even I think, like you said, Brace said, good, bad, ugly, all of it needs to be. If you're going to have those true, strong relationships, I mean, you got to be able to open up and share. Hey, this is what I struggle with, or hey, this is something that's going on in my life, and that's the true blessing that comes to these kinds of relationships, though. Brace.
There's something to be said about having the depth of relationship where you know there is absolutely nothing that could come between the two of you. That you're going to work through whatever the issues are. I know that's the case in my marriage. I know I have that relationship with some of you. And so, I mean, that is an incredible blessing. And it allows you to be more open and transparent.
Yeah.
The things that you wouldn't be comfortable telling the people that know you less, to a smaller depth. So, I mean, it can be uncomfortable, but it's also a very rewarding experience.
It is.
That kind of relationship.
Yeah. I don't think the Bible has always taught us we're always going to be comfortable. I think the different lessons we're taught in the different scriptures, we're taught and prepared to be a little uncomfortable, be a little outside your comfort zone. And I am terrible at being outside my comfort zone. But I think to the point of what we're talking about, it makes it easier when you have people surrounded by you who can help you through those different challenges. So, anything else on number 1? Okay, for time's sake, I'm going to go down to number 3 because I like this one better. It says, love one another, right? Where do you turn in times of tragedy? Do you pour out your broken heart to coworkers? Do you cry on the shoulder of the lady at the dry cleaners? Do you share your burden with the gas station attendant? As Christians, we reach out to our spiritual family for comfort and kindness in times of need. And when we do, the world watches as others in Christ rally to our side. Discuss situations of trial and tragedy when non-Christians took notice of brotherly love. The one thing that was interesting to me about this question, because I know we're talking about the love that we have with people we have relationships with and all those kinds of things, but in my mind brought up a couple of the world still can be good sometimes moments to where, because it mentioned all these people at these different places, and sometimes I'm sure there's been a situation where somebody at the dry cleaners broke down and the person working there just sat with them and hugged them, or whatever it may be. And I wanted to know your guys' thoughts on that side of things, and then also the real question on really just what's the significance to be able to, in hard times, be able to have conversations. And I know we talked about it a little bit, but in hard times, the importance of being able to talk to people about things like this.
I think the simplest thought is just remembering that you probably don't have any human experience that hasn't been experienced before, and probably millions of times before.
Yeah.
By other members of the human race. And so there are people that can tell you that, it does get better.
Yep.
That this is a growing experience, that fill in the blank, it's not all lost. And you kind of fixate sometimes on the current feeling instead of the long-term perspective of, all the things they say about difficulties building strength and, resistance builds muscles and all this kind of stuff. It's hard to feel good when the gym is killing you right now and you just go and take some aspirin.
Yeah. Yeah, it's easy to focus on the right now and harder to focus on a positive side of what's next and how we're going to get through this. Ashley?
To go along with Greg's point, with your Christian friends, you have the same goal, and it's so nice when sometimes you're in the thick of it, you forget some of the things, that you should be remembering, God's promises or verses.
Yeah.
And your friends can be so good about reminding you of those, and just kind of grounding you and bringing you back.
Yeah, no, that's spot on. Because I think it's harder for ourselves to bring us out of those moments, and then when we can have others who we love and trust and can come in and sweep us off our feet and say, hey, it's going to be good. We'll get through this. You're not alone. There's huge importance of that. And once again, another one of the true blessings of having a support system like that, just to go through those different hard things in life. Because once again, just like the Bible, tells us we're going to get uncomfortable, the Bible also tells us we're going to have some hard times in our lives. We're prepared that life is not always going to be easy, but it's cool to know that we can make it a little bit easier on each other when we have those kinds of relationships. Anything else on that? Okay, I think I want to go down to, give me a second here. Okay, question 6 is a good one as well. Because we kind of talked about, leading a quiet life and attending your own business, that kind of stuff. Question 6 asks, how did Paul comfort those who were concerned about the living saints would have an advantage over those who died in Christ? And also, I do maybe want to ask this. Did anybody else find it weird, and maybe that that they included the section about loving one another and then the coming of Christ together, and have a hard time correlating the two together? Because and I may just be looking at it weird, but I feel like there was just a hard switch to love one another, and then it also talks about Jesus' return, and it's kind of hard for me to look past that. But maybe that's just me. I don't know. But we could talk about it a little bit with the time we have left. But does anybody know how Paul comforted those who were concerned about the living saints that would have advantage over those who had died in Christ? looking at the end there in verse 15, 16, 17, 18.
Maybe not an answer to the question, but just a comment that came to mind that I thought of about the question that you just mentioned. Paul can say, okay, live this way before others and show this love and be quiet and peaceable. And then you can almost picture somebody going, well, hang on, Paul, because, my father or my mother did that their whole life, but now they're gone. And, what good was that living for them? So I do see how these topics can kind of flow into one another in that, to help with any questions of, well, why do the things that you just said we ought to be busy doing? He gives that here. The motivation for this is the end result of that living, the end result of being committed to that. And lest you are afraid that if you've died, you've missed out on your chance for the reward for such living, he reminds them that there's no expiration on that, even if your life on this earth has ended.
Yeah, I like that connection, and I guess I just didn't think of that. But and speaking of the context, and really with anything, like, so why are we living this life again, or why should we live this way if we're just going to die? And especially if people don't really understand that kind of concept. So I like that answer. That's good. Ethan.
I thought his wording in number 6 was a little odd. It's not how I would have stated it, but I think part of it is when you look at 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, there appears to be this idea of like, well, Jesus is coming back soon, so I'm just going to hang out and kind of wait. And so that's why in both letters you get this like, no, you got to go do your job.
Right.
And you got to focus on all this stuff because they thought, well, it doesn't really matter anyway.
He's coming, yeah.
So I'm just going to really meddle in everybody else's business and do this and that.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the background, I think, of just those letters. But with number 6 in particular, I don't know if the idea of advantage is how I would have said it, but it was, they died and they're thinking, oh no, did they miss out on Jesus coming back? Because they had what seems to be a really crucial misunderstanding of what was going to happen. And so essentially he's like, oh no, they're going to be more than fine.
Yeah.
In fact, they're getting it before you're getting it in some ways. And so yeah, he lays out all of this, and I think also, sorry, I feel like I'm talking about 3 different things.
No, you're good. I'm
That
following you.
connection of the 2 sort of sections of love each other and the returning of Christ is you're worried about them, they're okay, you need to be kind of
Worried about
what
yourself.
You guys are doing. Worry about yourselves and focus on each other and helping each other and loving each other. Because this is where this is all headed toward, but you still have stuff that you have to do now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hope that made sense.
No, it did, and it clarified it a lot better for me because I don't know why I struggled making that connection, but yeah, because it like you said, I think it goes back to they're gonna be okay, and let me kind of explain to you real fast what that looks like. Jesus is gonna come back for both those who are here and who are no longer here. So as long as we're here, let's keep focusing on these things what we're talking about. So.
I also think it connects because it's talking about how we're supposed to have this love and we're supposed to be growing in this love together and remembering that that love doesn't end whenever someone dies because we don't grieve the way others who have no hope grieve. We grieve in a way, we miss them right now, but the ultimate goal and something we're all striving for is getting back together.
Yeah.
And so looking at it as a build your love, keep your love strong for everyone, even when those have fallen asleep. But don't worry about them because you're going to see them again because they're going right with you.
Yeah, that's another perspective that I think makes sense. Saying, yeah, our goal is, we'll get back there and we'll be together again in that kind of way. So, alrighty, class always goes so quick. I feel like So, but I appreciate you guys' attention. It's great to see you guys. We missed everybody Sunday, so it's good to see everybody back. And I guess Aaron will take back over on Sunday, and yeah, we'll go from